Hey everybody, this is the Self Control Show, and I'm your host, Jason Schnitzer. Here's your next episode. Alright guys, what I got for you today is why do we men always try and fix shit? And really what this episode is more curtailed to is with regards to like a relationship. I briefly touched on this a few podcasts ago, but kind of wanted to break it down a little bit further. And it's like the age old stereotype. It's like, oh, you give a man a problem and he will fix it. And it was just like funny to me after I started learning about self-control and modern masculinity, and just like how rampant and the storyline's pretty much the same with like so many men that I talk to and women about the generalities of this concept. Men fix, women just want to talk. And I saw it in my own life. It was like, my wife would have an issue and I'd be like, well, my logical brain would just turn on and I'd be like, well, yeah, if you just go do this and didn't do this and they didn't do this, then your problem would be solved. And the funny part is you as a man think like, oh yeah, dude, I just freaking nailed it. Like I just got an ace that assignment. It's like done with that one, on to the next. And I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't usually work with me, especially when you're in a long-term intimate relationship. The reaction that I would get from solving the problem wasn't at all equal to what I expected it to be. It would usually be something like frustration, like, oh, you never listen. I just want you to hear me. Like, I'm not trying to come to you to solve problems. And, eventually in not good situations, your wife or your girlfriend, like they just stop coming to you because they don't feel like you're a safe person to bring, difficult things to, because a lot of people, and myself included, it's like sometimes I just need to talk things through for myself and I don't necessarily need somebody else's advice. So I started really paying attention to like how much unsolicited advice I give to people. And I was like the number one culprit and perpetrator of this. And I was like, wow, I'm listening to a story. I started paying attention, like, what are my thoughts right now? Am I actually listening to this person's story and trying to understand where they're coming from and what is going on for them? Or am I actively trying to problem solve as this person is telling me a story and information? And I just thought it was fascinating because like 99% of the time I was already like, oh, yep, this, and this. And I was like ready to fire off, all of this unsolicited advice to people. And what finally changed for me was just like having somebody say like, yeah, maybe ask the other person if they're actually wanting advice from you, in the form of, like what that might sound like is like, hey, can I give you some unsolicited advice? Like just asking. Or something like, hey, do you want my advice on this? Or do you just need somebody to listen? And you'll be surprised, number one, when you actually do ask, how much more receptive they are for hearing the things that you want to say. And then also, like, I started trying to understand why this is so across the board for men. And what I came up with was whenever somebody brings something up, like, it's a difficult problem, a lot of times there's emotions attached to it. There's distress, there's stress, there's anger, there's fear. There's lots of, things out of our control that are attached to this problem. And whenever somebody brings a problem to you, start to notice like what's going on in your body when that person's talking. You get tightness in your chest or in your stomach? Does your breathing start to increase? Your heartbeat start to increase? Do you start feeling stressed? What are your thoughts? Because a lot of times when there's difficulty brought up by somebody else, it triggers those same emotions that they're feeling within us. And for a lot of men, myself included, from an early age, we were just taught to basically ignore, shove down, numb, disassociate from basically all the difficult emotions. And, we were taught that like, oh yeah, this is the strong, stoic, masculine way to deal with things. When in reality is like all we were doing was just like suppressing, ignoring, stuffing them down and pretending like they didn't exist, which doesn't work because, those things bottle up. And the thing that happens is usually they just come out when we least expect it or don't intend to, in the form of like emotional reactivity, anger. I hear a lot of people talk about like, oh man, I'm just worried like when is like my husband's got a really bad temper, or I have a really bad temper and I just like I can't control myself. Sometimes it just like comes out of nowhere. It's like, well, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from repeatedly not addressing the shit that's going on inside of you. So when I notice this for myself, I'm like, holy shit, I'm trying to solve this problem, because when I solve this problem, it makes the emotion go away for you, which makes the emotion go away for me. And I'm like, oh, wow, that makes perfect sense. It's like, well, no shit. Why we as men always try to solve other people's shit is because like we don't know how to sit with our own shit. So therefore, when somebody else brings us their problems, it evokes that within us. We don't know how to deal with our shit. So what we do is we try to solve the problem as fast as we can so that it goes away. And I just thought this was like absolutely fascinating. The more I was able to like, again, this all goes back to like face the storm. The more you're able to face your own shit and your own storm and your own emotions and thoughts and feelings within you, and organize them, understand them, befriend them, be able to be with them, you start to build your capacity to be able to hold space for other people. So now when my wife brings me something and it's stressful, it's like, hey, I got to talk. Whereas before I'd be like, ooh, like my heart rate would go up. I'd almost feel like I'm in trouble sometimes. My breathing would get shallow. I get a tightness in my chest. And I'd realize like, man, this is not how I want to be. And once I was able to like untie those knots, a lot of them having to do with my past, now when she's like, hey, I got something to talk about, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, let me hear it. And she'll talk about whatever it is that she wants to talk about, and I'll just actively listen to her with no motive other than to make sure that I fully understand her, literally repeating back word for word what she says. That's active listening, gentlemen. And follow it up with like, hey, did I get that right? Did I miss anything? And I think you'll be surprised if you start to put this into play in your own life, how much less problems you'll have by actually doing less. And what I mean by that is like, you're not solving any problems. You're just being a container or like a masculine structure for the feminine to just unload whatever it is that they're feeling and then let it be, because you are not responsible for somebody else's feelings. If they ask you for your opinion, then you can give it. You can ask if that's something that they want. Hey, do you want my opinion on this? Hey, is this something that you're just wanting to get off your chest and you need space to talk? If that's yes, then it's like, okay, after the fact, just say, hey, is there anything more about this that you need me to understand? No? Great. Okay. Well, yeah, I hear you said this, this, and this. And I'm like, I can understand why that would be frustrating for you. Boom, done. I want to challenge you to try this in your life for the next week. Just as somebody brings you information, what is your initial reaction to that information? What's your reflex with regards to like what you're going to do with this disconcerting information? Are you trying to fix it? And if you are, try to catch yourself in the moment noticing that you're trying to fix it and go, oh my God, Jason was right. Here I am trying to fix the thing. And then notice what you're feeling in your body. It's like, do you feel tightness in your chest? How's your breathing? What do you feel anxious about it? What is that feeling that you have? And it's like, then you can ask yourself, like, is that a familiar feeling? Because if it's familiar, then it's probably been in your life for a long time, and there's some shit going on underneath that's, that you have to face with your own storm with that regard to make everything make sense. So hopefully this was helpful. This was like a huge aha for me and like completely shifted my relationship, especially with my marriage, but also relationships with other women and other men too. It doesn't have to just be with the feminine, but I think you will notice it most with the feminine in your life. This is all stuff that, again, in my one-on-one coaching that we can dive into. And again, this has to do with self-control with regards to like relationships, and then how that can create emotional and relational safety for the feminine. And when you have this, gentlemen, you will see your relationships just completely shift, skyrocket, grow deeper. And that is what this life's all about, growing deeper, more meaningful relationships, and you guys stepping into being the best versions of yourself that you can be. That's all I got for this one, and hope you guys get some good success. I'm real curious to see how everything goes for you, and would love to hear. Reach out to me, Jason Schnitzer Coaching on Instagram, and good luck out there, guys. Catch you on the next one.